Recently, with the release of two music-focused videos on this channel, I was wondering what exactly should be the focus of this channel. And I remembered what I wanted to do was create content out of opinions to be compared, or create content out of me suggesting something to you, the viewer. So, I took some of my favorite lesser-known movies and put them into a list. So, these are 5 underrated movies you absolutely have to see. And by the way, these aren't like fully underground movies, these are just movies that didn't get enough recognition, in my opinion. The Gift is a 2015 drama mystery thriller film directed by Joel Edgerton, often referred to as, hey, where do I know that guy from? Jokes aside, this man is a popular actor, starring in more films than Leonardo DiCaprio somehow, and while he's not one of my favorite actors, he delivered a great performance in both Great Gatsby and Zero Dark 30, which are the only films I remember I've seen him in. I did not know he was a director, and I was very positively surprised with what he did here. Now let's talk about this movie. Where to begin? I guess I'll start with the acting. Rebecca Hall gives probably my favorite performance of 2015, the year the film came out. Her raising paranoia of this man could not be executed in a more fun way. She feels like a totally real person. A really nice, unassuming, helpful friend that's kindness can be a gift and a curse. See what I did there? Her mannerisms are so fitting for the character she plays, and her change over the course of the film is a beauty to see. Joel Edgerton is, a little strange, which I guess is fitting for the character, but at least at the end, his performance could get a little too stereotypical at times. He wasn't doing a bad job at all. I just find it funny that his acting was worse in a film he wrote and directed. Like, bro, you have no excuse. I would like to talk about Jason Bateman's performance, which I think is absolutely incredible, but talking about his performance would definitely get me into spoilers if I wanted to talk about the highlights, so for now I'll move on. The pacing in this film might be the most evenly paced film I have ever seen. There was no point that I thought, man, this is going on for too long. It is truly the height of entertainment. But on the flip side, there was nothing cut short. The plot may have a few tiny loose ends, but as far as the entertainment side goes, this is perfection, giving you constant anxiety and tension-filled emotions. The score was deeply haunting at points and gave me goosebumps at one point in the film. The shots and overall color palette fit the tone perfectly, and like the pacing was consistent the entire time. The side characters, while usually just plot devices more than real people, felt very believable along with the main performances. Although this movie is almost like a dark comedy that sometimes could be making commentary on the genre of thriller and mystery itself, it's still 100% believable and realistic with its plot, storytelling, and characters. This movie is basically perfect in every way. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I love it, so check it out. Zero Dark 30 is a movie that gets very little recognition over the years, but I feel like it should get a lot more. It tells the complete story of a specific woman's investigation on finding bin Laden, and apart from maybe the torture scenes at the beginning being a bit too long, the film is phenomenally paced. The movie is longer than Infinity War, and it feels shorter than an episode of She-Hulk. Wait, that's a bad example, but the point is that this movie flies by. Every character is introduced with time and grace. Jessica Chastain is quite literally perfect in this movie. Her portrayal of the obsession with this specific investigation is a little too believable at times, to the point where she has almost no other character traits, but for a film like this, that doesn't really matter. It just wants to tell this true and down-to-earth story in a concise and extremely entertaining way. I cannot stress enough, the third act of this movie, finding and infiltrating the building, has quite literally the best action sequence I have ever seen in a war film. There was no plot armor bullshit or characters being unreasonably dumb for the sake of entertainment. It was a well thought out, well shot, emotional, and stressful action sequence. Speaking of stress, the score goes hard as fuck in this movie. There are some scenes where they are scouting out an area and the score is just popping off for no reason. I guess this is a good and bad thing, given that sometimes the score doesn't really match what's happening on screen, but it's not a big deal. Overall, this movie has basically nothing wrong with it. My only complaint is that I wish it just had a little more personality, but the film was trying to be straightforward narrative-wise, so I can't be too upset. Yeah, this movie is quite literally the perfect experience, and I would heavily suggest watching it. Much like The Gift, It Comes at Night was advertised mostly as a horror film, but it felt a lot more like a thriller. This movie made me sweat a lot more than it made me terrified. but that's not to say I didn't have at least a few jolts in my stomach. One aspect that this film really nails, and most horror films these days don't, is just shocking you straight into a setting. Sorry guys, but if you wanted to see another 28 Days Later, look elsewhere. After watching quite a lot of horror films this year, it made me happy that at least one of them can just cut the crap and get to the good stuff. And It Comes at Night really does cut the crap. You start off having no idea what's going on, and you slowly have to figure it out as the film goes on. The film also does a great job unsettling you without saying what is affecting people in a certain way. It also doesn't say what the disease itself does to you besides the fact that you eventually die. All of these things I'm saying are great for me, and could be argued that the same things I'm praising the film for should be ridiculed against, but it works for me and it takes horror in a new direction, which is always a win. And let's talk about the thing that most people can't stand about the film, the ending. Now, I won't spoil the ending for anyone who wants to see this film, but I'll just say that many said nothing was accomplished with this movie plot-wise, and to them I just wanted to say that they achieved the main goal of this movie by the end, and that was paranoia. The movie is very depressing, but people who say this movie is pointless is mostly just because the depressing ending made them angry. I'll leave it at that, and hopefully if you've seen this movie, you can at least change your mind a bit, and if you haven't seen this movie, watch it, but go into it knowing there is a small chance it won't be for you. If you are feeling confident for knowing the first 3 movies, there is a high chance you have no idea what this is. The Triplets of Belleville is a 2003 animated French comedy that, apart from its festival appearances, flew under many people's radar. It is a bizarre and sometimes disturbing movie with some dark humor as well. The film has no talking, which is part of the reason it's so unknown, but while that may seem like a negative, it makes the movie much more unique. It also makes up for that in the beautiful landscapes and attention to detail in the animation. The facial expressions in this movie are downright disgusting sometimes. The plot of this film was deeply explored even with no talking, and that is special. I absolutely loved the score and soundtrack of this film, adding to the old French setting. The movie's tone and messaging gets a little lost in the weirdness of it all, but if you're looking for a good time, this is your movie. On top of that, it's an hour and 20 minutes, so you have no excuse not to see it. Waves. A headache of a movie that pulls you through the most amount of emotions imaginable in one viewing experience. I know I've said this like 3 times on my channel, but this time might be the last. I think this is my favorite movie. It is completely unique from anything I've ever seen and uses imaginative techniques that enhance the film without feeling like a Darren Aronofsky movie. And yes, that's a good thing. The film has extremely triggering and heartbreaking moments for sure, but it never manipulates the viewer and instead goes through a strange redemption arc. And I'm talking about the movie, not one of its characters. This is the first time I've ever seen a movie itself go through a redemption arc, but it sure is satisfying. One of the movie's amazing techniques is its sound design. Many times in the film, it uses the soundtrack as sound design, which I found to work very well. And what I mean by that is that they will take a song that has an interesting sound in it, for example the song LVL by A$AP Rocky, and then put it into a scene where it seems applicable to the visuals, like when they take LVL and put it into a scene of the main character getting a CT scan. The film also has incredible visuals. I was expecting this going into the film knowing that this was the same director as It Comes at Night, which has some of the best looking scenes in a horror film ever, but this movie looks great in an entirely new way. The camera in this film is always moving. Quickly and in a strange way, the camera is often circling or spinning to further enhance the feeling of nausea that you get from watching the main character's mindset. The first half of the movie is very precise and a devastating nightmare with very convincing events, always leading to other more crazy events that push our main character over the edge. The color palette of the film is also beautiful. Every scene feels like a chapter in the first half because of how unique and memorable they are, and once again the movie further enhances that feeling with its technical aspects, this time with its color palette. The movie's background colors correspond well with the characters' emotions. It's not very deep, linking red with rage, blue with disappointment, but it's a very nice touch. Not only do the songs in this film work with the sound design, they're also great song choices on their own. One of my favorite scenes of the film with an intense text exchange has Her's Focus, which fits the mood and situation well with the two characters' argument, and then follows up with Tyler the Creator's IFHY, which also fits the situation perfectly and is one of my favorite songs of all time. You can see how I'm trying to tiptoe around spoilers here. After the climax of the first half, which is just pain, stress, and emotional whiplash, the second half focuses on a different character, and how that character deals with a certain situation. It is a really heartwarming second act, and has a fantastic message about how you shouldn't judge a person as a monster or a bad guy, and you have to see all sides of them. It also deals with feelings of regret, and how you have to act on your guts for someone you love. The second act is so good partially because of Lucas Hedges' performance. He plays a sweet, kind, but damaged teen boy who is awkward around others and is most likely on the spectrum. His character is not just a plot device for one of the main characters to tell us the message, he has interesting things to say and hears other people out. I can understand and respect if you don't like this movie. At times it feels like it is just dragging you through the mud a little too much for some, but I implore you to actually finish the movie if you just stopped halfway through, because it is worth it. And that's about it. Check out all these movies if you want, and have a great day.